Hello, lovely people. Welcome to my thoughts on The Idiot by Dostoevsky.
Dooby 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 doo. Dooby 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 Sophie vlogs.
I just wanted to hop in to give a little bit of context to what we're about to see. I had originally planned for this to be part of a reading vlog where I read my fiance's favourite books because November is our 10-year anniversary, and on our first date he told me that The Idiot was his favourite book and I still hadn't read it. But I'd also picked some other books to read. I read The Idiot in January. I have not read any of the other books. So I thought I would just give you my review of this book rather than continue to wait. I just wanted to give the context because this is why I will be talking about it in the context of what my fiance likes about it and then how I feel about it. So, cut to January, Sophie. I have read a lot of my fiance's favourite books already, particularly non-fiction. He is a big non-fiction reader over fiction. So I talk about books that he lends me all the time in my wrap-ups, but there are a few specific books that I know are his favourite books that I haven't read yet. The first one I don't physically have yet because he needs to dig it out for me, but it is the book that he told me was his favourite book on our first date. And I still haven't read it. And that is The Idiot by Dostoevsky. I got him to just give me a little bit of info on each of these three books, so I will just read you what he said. He said that he really liked the thread that runs throughout this of the world being a corrupting force as well as society. And he also really likes Dostoevsky's writing, even though this is a translated fiction. I don't know a lot about this book, and I'm kind of trying not to know too much about it until I go into it, but I look forward to finding out who the idiot is and what they're up to. I have finished reading The Idiot by Dostoevsky. I've been reading this for most of January. I thought that it would be quite a nice, atmospheric time to pick it up, and I do think that it has really helped in my reading of it. I've been in very much mouse mode this month, and not pushing myself to do anything too strenuous, and just being sinking into book, making time for reading. I on the whole, have really enjoyed this. I think I've given it a 4, 4.25, that kind of thing. I've definitely gone on a journey. It's such a big book. To give a spoiler-free plot setup, this opens on a train in a misty winter's day where we have I'm going to call him the Prince. Everyone has so many different names, so I'm just going to refer to them as the same name. We have the Prince, who he is epileptic. He is coming back. He's been in Switzerland for a great many years to be treated for this. So he's coming back to Russia. Rogozin, who is this guy who is, he's very much ruled by his passions, and he's telling the Prince all about this woman that he's in love with. And then we have this guy called Lebedev, who is he's a character, let me tell you. He's very much aspires to things slightly above his station. He knows who all of the players are, but he himself, he's very manipulative as the book goes on. What this sort of follows is Prince Mishkin is he is the idiot in question, and he's referred to as that because he is set aside from this society, and he approaches things in a way that is very pure and generous and all this kind of thing, but people who meet him therefore call him an idiot because he doesn't approach stuff in the same way that everyone in society does. So they tend to, upon first meeting, think he's either a complete idiot, or some people read much more malicious intent into his actions than there is, which is very much a reflection of those people. What follows in this 700 something page book is this, I guess, a tale of corruption. I don't know. That's not right. What this becomes is a story that has a great many characters. There is a very large cast of characters, and ostensibly most of this is all of these characters. The prince sort of builds up a network of people to which he is attached and involved, And throughout the four books in this, those relationships change. You kind of see the struggle to continue existing in this like pure way, or like the way that people won't accept it. I don't know. I'm really trying not to spoil anything. A large amount of this hinges around this woman called Nastasia, who is the woman that Rogozin tells Prince Mishkin about in the train at the beginning. She's a very strong part of this. She is frequently absent from the narrative, but when she is present, I feel like she makes a big impact. There's also like this family that he is like distantly related to, who sort of like, they have these three daughters. So Aglaya is another person who becomes quite prominent. Rogozin is someone who the prince has this real intense connection with, that is both good and bad at different times. There's such a broad amount of cast of characters. I won't talk you through all of them. One thing I really liked about this is there are some scenes in this that are like so electric. Like, I think book one is my favorite part of the book, because book one, I loved. I didn't know anything about this book going in. I didn't even read the blurb. I just went into it. I loved this experience that he had where, as I said, different people respond to him differently, and how people respond to him tells you so much about their character and how they interpret the world, and how corrupt or uncorrupt they are. And people underestimate him initially and they think that he is this idiot. And I loved the flashes of moments where it's like he will say something and it might go over the head of the person in the scene, but you're like, you're not stupid. Just because you don't respond in the way that people expect you to doesn't make you an idiot. You're intelligent, you know what is happening. I loved that. And I also loved the last scene of book one is so electric. It's like this, they all go over Nastasia's house, there's so many people there, and it's like such a there's like three different men who are all trying to propose to her for different reasons, and she is wild. And I loved the like explosive confrontation. You think she's going to do one thing, and then just when you think it's happening, it's like absolutely not, something completely different. And Nastasia at times I found frustrating, because sometimes I didn't really understand what her motivations were. But I think understanding that she's a woman who's been exploited by this man and that influences a lot of the reactions that she has and a lot of the reasoning for why she does things. I do, at the end of all of this, find her a very intriguing figure. Although part one was my favourite, I also really liked part four. I think parts two and three, I didn't love them as much because I sometimes felt like they didn't have as much drive. I will say every single part did have one of these like explosive, scandalous, dramatic scenes, which I really liked. What I found interesting as well, sorry, waffling wildly. What I found interesting is as the book goes on, I almost felt like at times it loses a lot of direction, I think. And that is why I liked part one and four most, because I felt like they had the most actual drive to the plot. What was interesting is I feel like sort of there is a narrator in this who is like telling you this tale. And I feel like as the book went on, the narrator was like, you know what, I'm not going to help you as much as I was helping you. So you get a lot of stuff that it's like really down to you to interpret like what this means. And I don't think I understand what everything in this means. Sometimes like characters would just expound on topics like the railways, Catholicism. There's a character called Ippolit who is dying of TB, and he has this sort of like this last testament thing that he's written that he read, and I was like, a lot of this feels like absolute nonsense to me, but okay. So I'm not saying I understood everything, but I liked the feeling of just it being down to me. And just as it went on, it was like, okay, it's down to me to interpret what's happening, and I'm going to do my best. I liked that, like, giving you that control. I don't know, I thought it was cool. I also think that worked, I think, well in that as the book goes on, particularly in the final book, so much of it is characters misunderstanding each other. Like, people having conversations where like one person thinks they're having a conversation about this, the other person has no idea what this person is saying. You have so much this increasing like characters who previously had maybe made some headway on like relationships or understanding all this kind of thing, just completely misunderstanding the other person. And that really like it's almost like I understand why I'm not being given so much direction and understanding as a reader from my narrator, because it's like it reflects the fact that the characters themselves are like completely misunderstanding. So it's like, I don't know, I just found that really interesting. Where I did struggle with this sometimes is that I do think parts of the plot got quite repetitious. There is for example, the prince and Nastasia, like how they relate to each other. Like I felt like we went round and round in circles there, which I think is very deliberate. But just as a reader, I was like, okay, lads, just decide what you're gonna do. Just make any decision and stick to it. And there are moments where you just so clearly, like Lebedev, like so clearly is an absolute chancer who is like selling out the prince and all that kind of thing, but we just keep him around. Why? Have some street smarts. But that is the point, because like this guy, like the prince, doesn't react in the same way that like a person, like I guess like a normal person would. He's kind of being set up as this like pure innocent kind of figure. So like of course he keeps extending generosity to people who keep exploiting him, and sometimes I found that a bit frustrating. But first of all, I think that's deliberate, and second of all, I think the characters and the way that the characters are painted, like I think that some of them are really going to stay with me. I think they're very strong. Like I feel them very strongly in my mind when I was reading it. I understand like them, even if I don't always understand what they're talking about. It's interesting reading this, knowing why it is my fiance's favorite book. Is that like when we talked about it, he was saying about like that element of purity being corrupted by society, and like can you, by demonstrating like what the most generous reading of every situation is, can you change society, or does society inevitably keep going with its way of functioning? And you know, like that like conflict, that portrait of someone, like can you even exist in society so pure? I do also like, this is my first Dostoevsky, and I don't know how like classic this is for his style. I do want to read some more. My partner has some more, so I can pilfer those books too. I find it interesting how much, like I would say, character very strong, even if those characters are annoying, very strongly painted, and whereas plot much less sort of relevant and driving, you know? All of those like electric scenes that I was talking about, it's always like at a party, at a public event where there are loads of people, and you have these dramas like played out in front of society. So then you have all these judgments of society, and rather than necessarily there being like the strongest actual plot driving the book, I found that interesting from like a narrative structure point of view, I guess, in that like we're kind of just bobbling along a lot of the time, and then you have these explosions of like emotion and drama, and then you kind of go back to bobbling along a bit and figure out what's happening. I will say this is a very good omen for the first book for this video. I don't know if it's a favourite of mine. I think that I have really enjoyed it, and I'm actually really enjoying talking about it. I'm really trying not to spoil anything, so I don't want to drop any big clangers in. I think it is a book that will stay with me, that I will think about. I feel really pleased to have read it. I feel like a sense of accomplishment for having read it. I haven't tackled like a big piece of Russian literature for quite a while, so I do feel it has also put me in like a classics mood. I'm recording this in January, and I've read like loads of classics in January, I think, as a result of this. So that's really fun. I'm looking forward to doing the next two.